I think about that. Did I create that? Was that my fault? Because I put that young individual in that position the day prior to be the radar operator, because already the operator that commanding officer had was injured.
I actually had one person. I had a patient who was a policeman who shot somebody in a difficult situation and was exonerated by his, his superiors in the justice system, but just had this continual feeling that that of guilt and shame and so on. And
The big people at the Pentagon and all that, they know when we go into an environment, they know what our attrition rate's going to be. They know that, and they look at that joint aspects of,
right,
going into combat, what do we expect to lose, and so forth and so forth. And to be at that level to think about service members as numbers and attrition and so forth, data, we become data,
right.
but as a infantry first sergeant at the time, and I wasn't looking at my Marines as data.
Good morning, Joe. Good morning, everybody. I'm a medical doctor and who's practiced over 50 years. And one of my interests from the very beginning was really how you get people to change their behaviors, because so much medical illness, especially chronic illness in modern life, is due to how we spend our days, what we eat, whether we move, whether we smoke or drink too much or do things like that. We've known that for over 50 years, and I'm still learning about that. But one of the main things that I learned early on in my career, and what every medical doctor learns, is that stress plays a huge part in all of that. And as Joe said, life is full of stress. We're not going to get rid of stress. We live in stress like fish live in water.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that demands a change on your part is stressful. And so a huge part of what I've devoted my career to is learning about and teaching coping skills and how you deal with stress. Because again, you're not going to escape it, but a couple of things you can do is you can learn not to create unnecessary stress, and that's a big part of what Mission Possible teaches. And another is to have a toolkit that can help you deal with stress in a way that allows you to feel like really you're not just a helpless victim in the face of it, that there are things that you can do, as Joe says, to help, to manage it, to mediate it, to reduce it, to eliminate it. So I've been writing, teaching people in workshops. I had a postgraduate training program for health professionals, teaching them how to help people with it. Had a couple of PBS shows. And once the pandemic struck, started creating online courses. And Joe and I have a mutual colleague who works with both of us, and was involved with me developing a course that turned into Mission Possible once Joe got introduced to it. And Joe, I'm always curious about what you saw in Mission Possible that applied to the wounded warriors and the vets that you've devoted so much of your life to help, because it wasn't really an application that I was familiar with or saw, but you saw something there that you thought was helpful, and we're learning that it can be helpful even in the face of such difficult to treat kinds of conditions as addictions and PTSD. And now I'm just wondering what it was that you saw and how you're seeing it evolve as you're connecting with more veterans who are using it.
Exactly. So my thought, well, emotions are information, by the way, right? And they give us information. They're telling us something. Something's wrong, something's triggering. And I knew that as a Marine, but at the same time, we're somewhat, programmed to put those emotions on the back burner and moving forward with your daily assignments and missions and so forth. So, once I retired, Marty, and I took over the Disabled Veterans National Foundation. I wanted to have a nonprofit. I wanted to be part of a nonprofit that serves our disabled and at-risk veterans. And I think that DVNF had a wonderful platform. And then, hiring the right individuals and good leadership and so forth, we developed, many programs as a foundation. And one that I wanted was I don't want to call it a mental health program or platform. I want it to be more of understanding our emotions and understanding what the information is that those emotions are giving us. And my research and being introduced to you through colleague and so forth was the mind, the body and the spirit, and when I was a regimental sergeant major for the Marine Corps for the Wounded Warrior Regiment, focused on mind, body, and spirit and so forth. And so it resonated with me. I wanted something more. And like nobody thinks about the mind. How does it work? Why do we hold on to things and so forth? And I felt that the mind, body, and spirit and mindfulness can actually strengthen us, and provide a solid, or actually center us one more time, if we move away from being centered, or we have a moral injury, which we'll talk about more and so forth. But very intrigued. I think the toolbox that you have is magnificent. I think it's a wonderful toolbox. I think it can help us through our life's challenges, let it be daily, weekly, or monthly, or annually, so forth. But we just have to give it a chance and participate and take that time, and you have to put the work into it, just like anything.
Right.
But what I like about Mission Possible, Marty, what you have to offer, and I'm glad that we have 7 videos, audio and imagery, and so forth, right? We have a Mission Possible app that we've created. Once you log in to the Mission Possible, you have your own dashboard, right? You have your journal, you have your 7 video courses, which I love the way you present them, and you have an outline that follows that. And then you have some data points in between the courses that talks about, hey, help us, better serve you by telling us what we can do better with these courses and so forth. It's just a wonderful. You got the, don't worry downloads, you got the stress busters and so forth that you can download. So there's a lot of free involved with this. And this free costs money. And thanks to the DVNF donors or partners out there that believe in not only the leadership of DVNF, our mission statement and our value and how we serve our veterans. I'm very thankful for you that. And I know Marty is as well, because Marty is the backbone of this platform. And I'm just happy to be in partnership with Dr. Marty Rossman. And I'm happy to have wonderful donors that believe in our mission.
Yeah. Well, you've done a great job putting that together. And of course, we are thankful to the donors, and we're also very excited to have the participants in what we've worked on. Me on the mind body content, and you on making this accessible to people. I think that app is a great addition. The dashboard is a great addition, because we know that these tools work. I mean, Mission Possible is basically a toolkit. It's the 7 mind body or mind body spirit. I hate to call them techniques, but they are techniques. They're skills that you can learn to manage your mind, your thoughts, your emotions, your physiology, because they are all linked in a two-way kind of change. Your mind is, there's not much you can do about your built-in physiology, and your instincts, which, when we get scared, we all get scared. When we get angry, we all get angry. When we get sad, we all get sad. But your mind is the one thing. Well, maybe I'll take that back. You can certainly change your body, and you know about that. You've mentioned many times there's, people go to the gym and they're gym rats, and they use exercise to help with stress reduction, which is a great habit to have. And this is kind of a mental gymnasium. This is kind of all right, now you can do lifts, you can do curls, you can do presses, you can do squats. Now, can you quiet your mind? Can you put yourself into a deeply relaxed state? Can you back up and get a different perspective on your situation? Can you pull those weeds in your mental garden, those repetitive, automatic, negative thoughts that are only true because they're there. They're not often not actually true. They're true because they become not only a thought pattern, but a neurological loop in your brain. And it is possible to pull some of those weeds and to establish new thought patterns. Is it possible to go deep inside and get a broader view, a deeper view, a wiser view of what's going on, and act from a sense of maturity and wisdom rather than a sense of reactivity and emotionality? And all those things are possible. And the 7 lessons that we teach in Mission Possible teach people how to do that. And as you said, the analogy to a gym is very good. You don't walk into the gym a 98-pound weakling the first day and then walk out, looking like the Rock, But if you stick with it, maybe in 3 months or 6 months, you're starting to look like the Rock and you've developed flexibility and stamina. So we know that people can do that with their mind. And when you do that with your mind, it interacts with your emotions and your body and your spirit a certain way. So that's what we've put together, and we're continually learning and looking for ways to make it more accessible and clearer to people who are picking this thing up for the first time.
So, as you know, yeah, I got the Mission Possible t-shirt on. This is a different design. I just sent Marty a hoodie in there, and we're gonna have this, and we're gonna offer this a free hoodie and a t-shirt or whatever to our registered users. That's something that I want to do because I think it's great, good collateral material. I like the way it looks and all that, and I believe in it. So
Right.
I'm gonna offer that to our users. It's gonna be coming soon. You'll be able to see that on the website for Mission Possible, and you'll be able to order your t-shirt and so forth on behalf of Disabled Veterans National Foundation, our donors and so forth.
Yeah.
Marty, so as you know, the producer, they give us an outline and you and I review it and we look at some of the topics and you and I discuss which one that we would like to discuss in terms of Mission Possible. But when I think about Mission Possible, I think about daily life challenges, right? They all can be managed, right? Daily, right? So I don't think about the 20-something years in the military. I think about today, how is my mental health today? How do I feel today? What's bothering me today? So if I wake up in the morning, right, and it's a challenge sometimes for everyone, right, depending on what your schedule is and so forth, I get out of the rack, and if as soon as I open my eyes up, I take that first breath, and I'm drinking my first cup of coffee, and next, my waking up in the morning high just went to a quick low in less than 3 seconds because woe is me woe is me just hit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if our topic for Mission Possible for this month is moral injury,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so hard the only one that actually pretty much can identify moral injury is that individual itself, right? Because there's, anxiety, grief. I mean, it's in relations to the relationship to moral injury is so broad because there's so many different negative attributes that can lead to other things such as PTSD, insomnia, OCD, all kinds of issues, but you have guilt, you have shame, you have anger, you have disgust, and then you can be aggressive towards others. Others can be aggressive towards you. I mean, there's so many things that we can talk about what triggers, a moral injury. And it doesn't have to be your service in the military, or a first responder. It's just value. So moral injury is value. Well, morals is value, right? So I think I want to know your opinion. I mean, what's your definition of a moral? A moral platform or morality, and then we can talk about the value of it and then how we can center ourselves if we strayed from it.
Yeah, I think
If that makes sense.
Yeah, sure, it makes sense. I think morals are a commonly held value, in a society or in a family, in a neighborhood, in a religion, in a belief system. It's like we do this and we don't do that. So a moral is something that we don't do. Probably the 10 Commandments are probably the best known sort of moral guideline in the Western
Mhm.
Judeo-Christian world, and it starts with, and you're right, it's certainly not limited to military or first responders, but and I'm certainly not an expert on moral injury. I think it's much more common. I think the very nature of being trained to use violence
Mhm.
and being trained to kill if needed
Mhm.
is a different moral platform than most people grow up with. So most people, until you get to the military or the police force or whatever, until you get there, you're trained, don't kill people.
Mhm.
It's wrong to kill people. It's like the number one commandment, don't do it. Now, you did a lot of training of young military people. We've talked
Mhm.
about this before, and to me, it seems like that's probably I would think, looking from the outside, and I want to hear from you because you're the guy that knows. Looking from the outside, I would think that that's both the most critical thing to teach um, someone who's being trained to be a warrior,
Mhm.
and the most difficult thing to teach people. I don't know if that's true. I'd like to hear but you're telling them, okay, we want, if necessary, we want to do everything we can. I've heard military people, we want to avoid violence, we want to avoid war, we don't want to, we're not out there bloodthirsty, berserkers looking to kill people. But in certain circumstances where your country or your unit or your government has decided that this is important for the well-being of your country, we expect you to not only risk your life, but potentially take other people's lives as well. So you're setting up a different moral platform. And I don't know how, what is the message there? How do you do that? And what is the message that you're giving them? And I think that military people are then logically much more at risk for doing something. I don't know combat personally. I watch a lot of movies and I read a lot of books and I listen to and I've studied military history for a long time, but I know that you can be in a situation and you're in a combat situation and something moves and you fire to defend yourself or the guy next to you and it's a little kid or it's somebody that you wish you hadn't shot.
Mhm.
And you did it for a reason and you may be able to justify it to yourself to a certain level, but some people are not going to be able to do that. And I wonder, and they carry that with them. And from my reading about it, it's not something you can probably talk to your unit and talk to people who are there with you. But outside of that, you don't come home and tell the family
Mhm.
dinner and you don't talk to people about it. You may not even want to talk to professionals who are there to help and so on. So that's what I'm wondering is how do you shift that moral basis and how do you address that? It's not something that was ever, um, it's not something that was formally addressed, in psychology or the military until maybe 20 years ago. So it's one of those things that,
Mhm.
don't ask, don't tell, don't, it was like,
Mhm.
um,
I think it's, when you talk
oh yeah,
about, I think it's really personal. I think it's a personal injury. I think it's, we
right,
all have different values,
right,
sometimes the village raises a child, sometimes the village doesn't, and values change and you may get your values from a single parent in a rudder society. You may get your values from, that nucleus family. So it varies.
right,
But,
right,
so when, of course, I can speak for the Marine Corps, being a drill instructor
right,
and DI school and being a recruit and so forth. So first, if I'm a drill instructor and I have, 84 recruits, they're all from, Chicago, New York, South Carolina, Alabama, Corpus Christi, California, all from throughout the United States, they have different morals, you have different values, right?
Mhm.
Different hygiene skills, different, mindset and being respectful and so forth. So what we do is we kind of like zeroize them, and we break them all down in terms of we're all created equal. And bring you all down to this level. Doesn't matter where you are in your life, how nurtured you were by mom, dad, or not. We'll bring you down to zero. You're worth nothing right now. And then we're going to build upon that. And what we do is we teach them customs and courtesies, the history about the Marine Corps, our Uniform Code of Military Justice, our standards, and we have, 4 months to do this.
Mhm.
We're with them every day, 15-hour days, when they wake up, they see us, they go to sleep, they see us, and I'm not saying that we bend their minds or anything, but we just, you're in an environment, we create that environment for them, and they're in that environment for 4 months, and then we're teaching them instant obedience to orders. We're teaching them muscle memory. We're teaching them all these things, right? Now, this is specifically for the military now.
Right.
This is for that one individual. And then they go, and then they graduate boot camp. They're a basic Marine, right? The weapons techniques, physical, martial arts, we give them the tools, just like Mission
Mhm.
Impossible gives us the tools, right? And then
Mhm.
they go to their next duty station, which would be SOI, right? And they learn the infantry skills. And then from there, they go to their MOS, military occupation specialty, let it be infantry, support agency, the air wing, or whatever. And then they go back to their formal schools. So they're getting trained, in education for the first 12 to 18 months, sometimes 2.5 years, depending on their MOS, right? So at the same time, they're still being nurtured, right? Muscle memory, all right? You're being somewhat institutionalized on the standards of the military, right? And
Right.
we know that, we're here because we love our country. We value our values within the United States, and we look up to one flag, so we bring that teamwork, we build that esprit de corps, spirit of unit. All right. So you think about that, right?
Right.
And so by the time that Marine picks the rank up of PFC Lance Corporal, he's in dock. Yeah, he's drank his first wonderful glass of I love my country and I'm ready to go defend my country. And
Mhm.
then it just gets better and even better and then more nurtured and so forth and so forth. So at the same time you're doing all this, right? That individual's moral seed is sitting right there. Did we touch it? No, we did not. Do we build upon it? Of course we have, because we offer, when somebody goes to boot camp, we have every church available. Non-denomination to Muslims, to Christians, whatever. We give them all that. We don't take it away. We enhance it. We encourage them, to lean towards their value, right? And they do that, and some don't. So, and then of course throughout their military career, that'd be 3, 4 years, 6 years, 20 to 30, whatever the case is. But it's muscle memory, right? So now you asked the question about what happens in combat, right? Well, we have a target, we have an enemy, right? We have a mission, right? And we go towards that target and we eliminate that target. That's our job, right? It
Mhm.
becomes a job, right?
Mhm.
However, muscle memory is in the front. That moral compass, that interview, that's on that back burner, right? Because if you put it up front, you're gonna have an issue. We're gonna have an
Mhm.
issue, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And you're gonna have an issue on making choices, and those choices may hurt the guy next to you, the gal next to you, whatever the case is. So yeah, it's tough. Um, I've witnessed individuals going through the process of that moral injury, on the
Mhm.
battlefield, after the battle,
You say it again.
before going to the battle. Oh yeah, definitely.
Uh-huh. So it comes up, you've seen it come up before going to the battle.
Oh, definitely. Oh,
How
definitely.
does that tend to come up?
Well, because there's a lot of unknown going into combat, right? So here you are, you're on Cherry Point, you're on the flight line waiting for your bird to get out, and then you end up getting in the country, and then you go through a process to move up north or wherever you're going, let it be Afghanistan, Iraq, or whatever, and all that anxiety, and then you question yourself, you question, am I doing the right thing, and so forth and so forth. And I had a Marine throw his weapon down right in front of me in the Babil province. We just got ambushed. Throwing his weapon down, Marty looked at me and goes, "I'm scared, First Sergeant." And I picked that weapon up and I popped it back in his chest and says, "I got the same fear that you do."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it just helped him take that extra step,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that, I had the same fear. And we all do.
Right.
It's just how you manage that fear,
Mm-hmm.
how you feed off it, or how it eats you away, right? So he got through that day, and he was phenomenal Marine, and he proved that. But he hit that point,
Right.
where it levied on his moral compass.
Yeah.
Damn, I can't do
Well,
this.
do you think that was so? It kind of touches on, and I don't want to get too technical here, but one of the questions that we thought about when we decided we were going to talk about or listen about moral injury was the relationship of moral injury to PTSD, and they often are mixed. There's about 30% of them that come together. But one of the main differences is that PTSD is generally fear-based. It's being exposed to something where you're afraid you're going to die. Whereas moral injury is not fear-based. It's more
Decision based on decision, choice.
narrative-based. Should I be doing this?
Mhm.
And it has more to do with shame and blame. So that Marine, if you hadn't put that gun back in his hands and told him that you had the same fear and we're moving ahead anyhow, and he hadn't turned it around, he may have suffered what we could call moral injury if he had quit, if nobody had put that back in and he failed to participate in the mission and go with his unit.
Marty, what about me? What about me? How I felt, putting that weapon back in his chest. Of course, we're in the middle of a firefight. I
That's a
mean,
really good
and,
point.
and,
So
and,
much,
and then what happens after the fact? He gets home, and he's got that moral injury, or
right,
I was a contributor to that. It was just it was a tough
right,
decision. I didn't think about it. I didn't take my time. I reacted. I
right.
reacted because we're in a, we're taking fire, and this young Marine just dropped his rifle and just couldn't do
That's
it.
your muscle memory that you're on a mission, you know that you're there
Exactly.
to do it
Exactly.
and you're going to do it. And you've put that, you have the fear, but you
Mhm.
put it behind you. You put the moral question in your mind has already been resolved. You don't have a moral question about whether you're going into this battle. You are going into that battle. And it sounds to me like you don't have ambivalence about it, or if you do,
Right.
you've put,
But here's the thing, though, Marty. I don't know why he throws his
Marty Rossman.
excuse me.
Yeah, I don't know why he's thrown his rifle down. I mean, I didn't, at the time we didn't go into detail in terms of that.
Right.
But and here's the thing, my follow-up, sadly, my follow-up was about 9 hours later, at 4 o'clock in the morning when our mission ended at 2, and this ambush started at 8:30 in the morning. So we were at it all day, so this was an early event.
Right.
This
Right.
happened probably around 9:15, 9:30, as we're, getting off MTBRs and go, we're in the middle of an
Right.
ambush.
You know,
But at the end of the day, did I make as an infantry first sergeant at the time, I have to go back the next day in maintenance and just check with the Marines and see how they're doing through, because we just had an event, injuries. We had KIA, we had some wounded and so forth. So there's a lot of going on at my level that I had to actually inventory, my my Marines in the company.
yeah.
So I'm constantly checking in with them, how you're doing and so forth. But I never really got into a hard conversation with that young individual because we're constantly moving.
Right.
But I did speak to him, and I said, never drop your rifle.
Well, it touches on something, what you're saying is it touches on something that does have to do with what we're trying to do with Mission Possible. One is that, and that we've talked about before, is that when somebody goes into the military, there's an intensive training. Like you said, you're with them 17 hours a day for, was it 4 months that you said? And you're in their face and you break them down to like, you know, you're nothing and here we're building up and we're teaching you how to be, how to act, how to take care of yourself, how to treat your, you know, what your place in this world is, how to take orders and how to follow orders. And we've talked a little bit about this before, that we're providing this toolkit and it, we can't do this, but it would sure be interesting. Is like, what if we had people for 17 hours a day for 4 months and like, and we were teaching them these tools, and there was
Exactly.
you know, or something even less intense than that. When you get out of the military, here's the skills. Now you're something. Here's what you are. Here are your skills. We want you to, you know, did you practice your breathing, you know, 4 times today? Did you
Well,
practice your deep relaxation? Did
well,
you begin with your deeper self and so on and so forth? We can't do that, but what are your thoughts about that?
well, I agree with you. I mean, it's just, it's just all training. It's
It's
training. I
true.
mean, we're training our young service members to be warriors, right?
Right,
Right. And then, of course, if they're having issues at home and they're
right.
having personal issues or whatever the case, it becomes a distractor, right? So the government is spending all this training time, money, and all this other good stuff, joint cost, all on this individual to be that warrior. All right. So if you say that I have I'm having mental issues, or you don't, that's the thing, because you get pulled out of that mechanism, and then they have to maintenance you a little bit more. Sometimes they say that it's a career changer or it's a career ender if you talk about mental health and so forth. So that stigma's still there, I'm sure. But
Hmm.
imagine if they taught mindfulness in boot camp, just like in grade school for young children, so forth, about understanding the brain, understanding anxiety, how to manage it, through relaxation skills and cultivating calmness and some of the tools that we offer.
You think it
Would
would
they
fit?
be better? Would they be better soldiers? Would they be better service members? I think so, because I think
Yeah.
that it would strengthen their resiliency line, Marty. That's the key thing, is strengthening the resiliency. And I think that's where the military fails right now, because it's
Hmm.
all about shooting the target, area point target, and being an athlete, a professional athlete, because you're always moving, all right, and to be a strategist. Imagine how strong of a strategist we'll be if we had mindfulness built into the training. Our resiliency line will be a little bit stronger. We'll be able to process what transpired through training that was hard, or going through combat and accomplishing that mission, and then coming home and understanding that yes, I know what I went through. Yes, I've been maintenance myself at some point in time, going through this in my downtime. Right.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful, wouldn't it? Because
I don't know.
I don't either. I don't
I
either.
don't,
You
because I
know,
was thinking at the basic level, would it be wrong to say that you're teaching people not to think for themselves? You're teaching them to follow orders. Um,
we instant obedience to orders is the number one key thing that
yeah.
teach our Marines. That's the number one, instant obedient. I mean, it's like a letter to Garcia. You ever read
Mhm.
that book? Find it, Google it, whatever. It's about it. Here's a message. Give it to Garcia. There's no questions asked, no nothing.
Mhm.
Find them, give them the message.
Yeah, that's
So that's
interesting.
the mantra that we use. Instant obedience to orders. So we're
Yeah,
going to do without question, what we're told to do, even
yeah,
in the most heinous situations and so forth. To be in combat. Boom.
right.
Take
Yeah,
out that mud hut. Take out that building. Take out this, and we
yeah,
just take it out. And
interesting.
then we deal with the emotions later on and so forth.
Right. Fascinating. Do you think we should open the floor up and see what people are thinking, or if they have questions or
I say,
experience?
let's do it.
Shall
Open it
we?
up. Love
So
to hear
for
from
the participants, there's a Q&A Yeah, so Mary says, I think the moral injury stuff you guys have been talking about should be a class people take before they go to battle or before they start working as police.
I think Mary's absolutely correct.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We
It's
don't talk
something,
about, we don't talk about that. We don't talk
it's
about
something, yeah. Hmm.
Well, here's something. I'll share this.
Yeah,
So, and I don't talk about combat or anything, but something that's always sticks with me, Marty, that I'm bothered by. And I think I don't think about it every day, but it brings up, and I guess this topic brought it up as well. So, the big people at the Pentagon and all that, they know when we go into an environment, they know what our attrition rate's going to be. They know that, and they look at that joint aspects of
right,
going into combat, what do we expect to lose and so forth and so forth. And
right,
to be at that level to think about service members as numbers and attrition and so forth, data, we become data,
right,
but as a infantry first sergeant at the time, and I wasn't looking at my Marines as data. I was
right,
looking as them as actually my young lads,
right, right,
and young professionals. And I was like, um, that dad figure in a way, kick him in the ass and pat him on
right,
the back at the same time.
right. I mean, the whole situation is full of moral decisions from the top down, but as you're down, you have different responsibilities. So then the question would be, um, what do you do about that? And in terms of, and there is no easy like, oh well, here's the therapy for moral injury. It's a deep, meaningful. The thing about morals is they're meaningful, and you're questioning yourself means you're a caring person. You're looking for, you know, to learn. So a lot of times, in terms of healing from it, if healing is possible, it has to do with the stories, the narratives that you're telling yourself, and putting those out and considering others and being fair and being honest. I actually had one person, I had a patient who was a policeman who shot somebody in a difficult situation and was exonerated by his superiors in the justice system, but just had this continual feeling
Mhm.
that that of guilt and shame and so on. And not that this is the magic treatment, but at a certain point in our work together, we actually did. I said, let's do a trial. Let's do your own trial. Put yourself on trial. And I want you to have I want you on the one hand to be a prosecutor and prosecute the case against you. And on the other hand, I want you to be a good defense attorney and and do defense. And I want you to have a jury of, and this is all imaginary,
Right.
jury of your peers and a judge, and come to your own conclusion. And if it turns out you're guilty, what's the sentence going to be? And can you serve your sentence? And actually, we went through this process in a lot of detail. There was a lot of emotionality, and he ended up understanding he had no choice, and came to a certain level of forgiveness for himself, because you weigh that up. But a lot of times I think people, because there's so much guilt or shame involved, that people don't air it out, don't put it out, don't, just sort of stuff it and deal with it as best you can.
Mm.
But I'm wondering if there's ways that anything in our program could be useful to in this situation, and whether there's something that
Weeding your
is
mental garden sticks out with me. I mean, that's the key thing, and we talk
it's
about rooted issues and so forth, but,
right.
but, you know, um, so I think about this young Marine that I made a radio operator, and he gets killed the next day. You know, but Marines, we're really tight with each other. We're just cut from a very strange cloth, and we not only value the Marine itself, but we value their family. And it's important to the Marine Corps that their family and are taken care of as well. So, but I knew my Marines. I knew who were married, who wasn't, who had girlfriends and wives and children and all that. So that young individual had a wife, young child, and so forth. So I think about all those. So, so it's a whole thing. But, and I try to reason with myself, Marty. I'm an infantry first sergeant. My sole job was a senior enlisted advisor to the commanding officer, and it was advising him, Marine Air Ground Task Force, whether it be on training, combat, just the welfare of our service members, but a lot about the welfare of our service members is pretty much. So they fell under my umbrella as that leader. So when one got injured, or sadly one got killed or whatever, it took a toll on me, because I built that relationship with these Marines, and their well-being was my responsibility, because if I can get their mindset and strong, right, and their home front balanced, they're going to be better service. They're going to be better Marines.
Yeah.
They're going to be better Marines on the battlefield. They're going to be better Marines. They're going to be less problems in moving forward to the fight, because everything at home is taken care of. So we had to balance all that. We had to make sure that their home life, they had the resources, the tools, because that takes that mindset and becomes a muscle memory that, in my absence, my family's taken care of, and now I can concentrate on the mission and not focus on some of the issues that may happen at home and so forth. So I had to make sure that everything was in place for that, because you don't want to send a service member forward with issues at home, because their mind's not on the fight. And then, of course, we're all at risk.
It's an immense responsibility.
Exactly. But sometimes, and I remember
go ahead.
that night, we're sitting in our hut, my commanding officer and myself, and I'm writing a letter, to the service member's family, and we got to do the inventory of the young wounded, the dead, killed in action, Marine and so forth, and you're not thinking right now. There's no emotions right now, because your adrenaline's still at a level. I remember the commanding officer looked at me and he goes, I don't feel anything, First Sergeant. I said, don't feel anything right now. Keep your mind on the game. And I said, I'll take care of this. And that's what happened. So, but at the end of the day, I say to myself, who's going to maintenance me, right? Who's going to maintenance my commanding officer that's making these decisions? And who's going to maintenance me as well? Because my mindset is on the care, of my Marines, in combat, or whatever the case is. So you're at that level, and you're dealing with wounded, killed, issues, anxiety. You're dealing with, issues at home may arise, so you're dealing with all that. You're trying to, create synergy where it all levels out and so forth. So there's a lot of stuff involved with being a leader in combat, not just jumping in a Humvee, let's go. You're dealing with the emotions, you're dealing with the tactics, you're dealing with the real individual of that Marine itself, and can they still act to instant obedience to orders? What is keeping them from doing that, and how can they keep them from acting?
The moral aspect is built into the whole system.
It is.
You have to make that. You've made that decision before you become a combat leader, but it still hurts, and it still creates these emotions, and you still think about it. Can you see this comment from a fellow named Jess in your? It kind of has to do with this. I wonder, sometimes it can you see that one, Joe? Be hard to tell where a healthy balance is between learning from past mistakes, improving oneself, keeping in line with your morals, and excessive rumination. I think that rumination is really a key. It's a key to that maintains I think it keeps the wound festering. It keeps the wound open, and I'm seeing that may be a place that one or more of the tools that Mission Possible teaches can come in, because both the stepping back, the disidentification, the weeding, the mental garden, the deep relaxation, all of those can help with the rumination. Going over and over the same path doesn't get you anywhere. And that's why the very first thing that we teach is this stepping back to the observer place, and then moving on to the other tools. So he says, what I mean is, how can one get rid of guilt and its effects completely, while also not just falling into bad behavior, not caring about impacts on others? Sometimes it can seem like any amount of reflection can lead to falling in a pit of guilt. So I think he's talking about something that's related. It's hard to go into those memories and not go through the same.
Right. I mean, if I have a moral injury, or however whatever that situation does to me, does it with the negative feedback off of my decisions or my choices, or how I observe my choices. I function, I mean, I get up, I go to work, and just like anyone, I function. It's not shut me down totally. I mean, we're talking about emotions. I mean, that's what it is. Emotion, are actually telling us something. So yes, well, when you talk about moral compass, that's the center of who you are. You got to start from somewhere, right? Right. So that's it. So it's either you have good morals, you don't have good morals. So if you grow up with great morals, then and then of course you challenge those morals through actions or whatever, yes, it's going to bother you. Can you work through them? I think I'm working through mine, and I have been. I don't think it's it's I don't think I'll ever get rid of that moment or how I feel about that moment. I tried analyzing it, I peel the onion back on it, and so forth. And you know could I have done it differently? Of course, you being a doctor,
Yeah, it's not like many things are simple and that there's a silent magic. Like here, these are very, very deep, very, very deep questions that people need to struggle with, in terms of, back in the Vietnam War, where people were getting drafted. So I went a different way. I have tremendous respect for the military, and I understand its necessity. And my father was in the military, my uncles were in the military. But when Vietnam came along, I was part of that move that felt, this is not World War II. I'm not going out there to fight Nazis. And I don't think we should be there. And I don't support this particular war effort. Now, I wasn't in the military, fortunately, but I was number one on the draft list, and I went through. So my moral process was, I'm not going, and I became a conscientious objector. And they kept telling me, they said, no, you're just going to be a medic. You're going to be helping people, who are wounded. But I read the military manual, and it says very clearly that the role of a medic in the military is, if possible, to get those soldiers back into the battle so that they can be effective soldiers. I said, I do not, don't support that. So I had a moral choice at that time, and I never questioned anybody else's moral choice, because I had good friends who went into the military voluntarily, and a couple who died there in Vietnam. And I know that they did what they think was the right thing to do, and I tip my hat to them. And I don't see them as people who went in that way, but that's the kind of decision you make before you go into the military, if you have that.
Well, the word that to me reflects moral injury or is probably resentfulness.
Say more about
resentfulness.
Yeah.
Being resentful.
Feeling resentful that you were in that situation?
No. I don't resent any decision I've made.
So,
and while in the military, I don't resent it. I don't resent, and I could have handled certain situations probably in a different way. Let it be my approach, being persuasive or authoritative as a leader, that mindset or whatever. But my decision, the end state, my delivery probably could have been different, and maybe I resent some of
Ah,
my
I
delivery,
see. So are you talking
but
about feeling resent for
after
yourself?
the fact, I never felt resentful after the fact. No,
Mhm.
no. I was,
So we got a couple of minutes left. Do you want to say a little more about when you say the word that comes to mind is resentfulness, and
mhm.
what are you resenting or
I mean, well, decisions making, right? I mean, you can I mean, when you're in a combat environment, you can, your actions, your decision making,
oh,
you can be resentful. Um,
right, similar regretful and resentful to things you've made.
right. I mean, the
Yeah.
sergeant major,
We
first
all,
sergeant would make
you know,
complete,
in
right, they're gonna make
medicine we
complete
call that
decisions like that.
yeah, in medicine we have that all the time. We call it the retrospectoscope.
Mhm.
Every decision is easy through the retrospectoscope. You look back, you have time to think about it and
Mhm.
time to think of other options when you're in the heat of the battle or you're in the middle of a surgery or you're in the middle or you're taking care of people. You're making decisions in real time and you have to make the best decisions you can. But
Exactly. And
yeah,
you got to respect that decision. So commanding officers, they make decisions, and sometimes, the outcome, you know, um,
no,
could be
event,
faltered at some point or whatever the case is, but you got to respect that decision because at that moment, I mean, look
right,
at COVID. Look what happened with COVID, right? The government was making decisions
right,
without the data because it
right,
was fresh and new. And now look at right now, everybody's chastising everybody that made the decisions.
right.
You
Easy to
know,
do.
so here's the thing, though. You're danged if you do, you're danged if you don't. Respected decisions made based at the data
Right.
and situation dictates.
Yeah. And have some empathy for yourself and some
Ex-
forgiveness, I think is a big part of it. We don't have time to go into it. Is there anything else you want to say before we're done? We're done in a couple minutes.
Well, I thought this was a difficult topic to talk about, well, for me.
Yeah.
Um, and but a moral injury, I think it I think it can happen to anyone. Doesn't matter if you're in the military or not, but it's what you believe in. And are your actions that you're taking are against or outside of what your beliefs are? And are you feeling the anxiety, the emotions from those choices that bring you away from your moral compass? And if you are, Mission Possible, I'm sure that cultivating calmness, you know, um, taking a step back as an observer and just looking at the situation. Just like you made mention, Marty, I think that there are tools that can help you relax a little bit. But one of our next sessions, I think we need to talk a little bit more about our brain, the functions of it, how do we hold on to it, understanding the muscle. I think that's important as well, because that may help some of our users
Yeah.
out there to understand that muscle. I think that's
Good,
important, and how these tools can help that muscle.
good
You know,
idea.
I believe that all life challenges can be managed. I don't think they can be cured, but I think they can be challenged. I mean, managed. And I think that the tools of Mission Possible, that's an attribute. I think they can.
Well, that's our intention. We're trying to help people deal with these difficult issues, and they are difficult issues, and
Absolutely,
they
absolutely,
take work. We're providing some tools, and it doesn't mean that reaching out to others, to professionals, to be it pastoral counselors or therapists, or taking advantage of those tools is not a good thing to do. It is, but it's also kind of arming yourself with some tools that you can also use and to help yourself um, do the right thing, even if it's late. Even if there's some forgiveness involved and there's some learning involved. Um, and
do the right thing for the right reason at the right time, right? That's what we try to do. But
yeah, right.
Mission Possible is open, it's free, all right? And please recruit individuals that can probably use the platform.
Yeah,
Um, our donors love what we're doing. I hope that they love what they're doing because they're donating to the organization, and I'm glad that we're providing a service to our veterans, first responders, and family members. So
yeah.
be on the lookout for the hoodies and the t-shirts, and and we're hoping to get the conversation going. I am by no means a professional in psychology and things. I'm just knuckle dragging sergeant major, retired DVNF CEO. I care about people. I care about service members and veterans and so forth, and I'm hoping to provide more services for them.
Yeah, you have a tremendously valuable experience and willing to share it and willing to listen to others. And I have nothing but respect for it. I thank you for your service, and I thank all the vets and first responders that are on the program for their service. And we want to be of service to them. And we will hopefully see people and other people that they want to invite, if you found this valuable, next month. And
Oh,
we'll,
wonderful. Remember, all life challenges can be managed. Visit www.dvnf.org, and hit our program section. We have many programs to offer. Grants provide stability for individuals that are having issues, paying their bills and so forth. We'd love to help out with some of those things as well. But mission possible. Dr. Marty Rossman, I really appreciate our time together and the opportunity to discuss certain things that bring value to Mission Possible, and I'm hoping to have a great conversation with you again next month.
have a great month, Joe.
Yeah, you as well. Talk
Bye-bye.
soon. Bye.